So nice and comfortable in your chair. Sitting upright to begin with and just rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Remember, try and have some of your weight forwards in your feet. So you, in the upright stance, you feel well supported, not straining in your back. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. And then on the other side. And the upper part of your chest. And your belly. Your legs. Back. Just letting your body sort of appreciate the support from the chair when you're back like this. So hips, back, shoulders, just beginning to relax a little. Followed by the front of your body. This feeling of almost of the tightness in your body, the tension in your body, sort of draining away like water just draining out of your body. Nice steady rhythm and flow in your breathing. Trying to get that feeling of the breath starting, in-breath starting with the expansion in your belly. So just drawing the air gently down into your lungs. Back to the upright position. And the same feeling of draining away so that you can actually get to a point where you just become aware of this structure, the structure of the skeleton and the associated muscles and tendons and ligaments, providing the sort of inner support for your body. My first teacher used to sometimes say it was a bit like hanging a coat from a hook. But actually, sometimes it seems to me more like just wrapping a garment around a tailor's dummy. The garment itself is quite loose, and you can arrange it and you can do things with it. But it can do that because it's supported from inside. So we begin to feel that stronger feeling within the body, obviously in our legs, feet, but also going up through the middle of our body, up towards the collarbone and so on. And in the first instance, just allowing as much as possible a complete relaxation in big muscles in chest, belly and back, shoulders. That loosening quality is something we will build on, but for the moment, just trying to keep it as you go through the loosening exercises that we start off with. Turning your head as much as possible, no resistance to the movement, even if that means that you have to make smaller movements. And then hands in front of your shoulders, circling back. Going forwards. And then winding your arms around. Remember, this is a rotation from your shoulder, not just in your wrists. So, I will do that. Maybe you can see a bit more clearly. See the back of my arm there, and then the front of the arm. So it's not just this. Your hands up. Same idea. If I exaggerate, you can see how my elbows move around. As I say, that is an exaggeration, but it makes the whole arm look a bit like a crank lever. Like used to wind up something. And then back the other way. And let your hands rest. Now, ease forwards and push back. We want to build on that looser quality. So there's a little bit more connection, and that stronger feeling from deeper in the body begins to make itself felt not just deep in the body, but through the whole of our body. And the way that we do that, initially at least, is through just using various images. We program the body to move a bit differently. And the most common image is probably the one where we say we move as though we're moving through water. That's the kind of resistance that we envisage and, in a sense, kind of fool the body into thinking it's surrounded by. And gradually, the way that we move becomes more connected and just develops this very fluid strength. And then turn a little. And then in the other direction. And then going around. So we use the imagery to develop that inner strength because it's a different type of strength, a different quality of strength to what we normally think of in terms of strength and how we might build strength through using sort of weights and resistance and so on and so forth. More subtle and less orientated towards a particular group of muscles or something like that, but more concerned with the whole of the body working as one unit. Back in the other direction. Sit back, pull one heel up, step forwards, measuring the step. So this is a comfortable position, your knee not straining in your back, and a good solid contact with the ground. On the other side. So we first of all release tightness and stiffness from the body. We allow the body to soften, and then we rebuild in a sense. There's a process of what's sometimes described as emptying of the old kind of tightness and stiffness, and fill in with this stronger quality. And it's just an ongoing process, very much so in Tai Chi. The commonest images of moving through water, but you might think in terms of, if you're doing something like this, stretching out the elastic band. Some people say, I had one teacher, an American teacher, talk about molasses, treacle, moving through treacle. You can get an idea of what it feels like actually. If there's a strongish wind and you're outside, that feeling of moving into the wind. So those sort of images. Now hands to your sides again. Start with your hands palm out, your weight back, and forwards. So connecting up the different movements that we were doing, obviously the transfer of our weight and all that means in terms of legs and back and the flow of the movement in the upper part of the body. Along with this opening and closing of chest and back that comes with the rotation in our arms. Really all one movement. Now, fisherman cast a net. Same opening and closing in ribs and back. And then rolling the ball, pulling on your arms rather than trying to lift them. So using that same movement of your weight, moving forwards and backwards, moving your shoulders for you. Just keeping your arms at a soft angle so that it's almost like your fingers are stuck in mud. And you're pushing down with your feet to pull your fingers out of the mud. You may be able to feel a kind of line, almost like an elastic thread, going from your hips up your back to your shoulders, down into your fingertips. As you start to push down through your feet, you feel that thread extend out, and then it contracts, helping to bring you back into position. So we come upright by allowing that softening, allowing our hips to sink back, rather than what we often do, which is the opposite of sort of stiffening, straining, and raising our centre of gravity. And then changing. Pigeon spreads its wings. And then change again, pushing a wave. So the name itself suggests a stronger action, of course. Pushing against water, or like the wave doing the pushing, whichever way you care to think about it. One more time. Hands lower down now, more in front of your hips. Punch with both hands. Again, we've got that rotation from the shoulder through to your knuckles, like a drill. One more time. And then back to pigeon spreads its wings and a series of 3. Another image you might use for the pigeon spreading its wings is that you've got a ball or a balloon here that's just pushing out, that you're trying to just not let it expand too quickly, but not straining against it. And then as you go forwards, like you're just squeezing into the ball. And here, I exaggerate slightly, my elbows go out. There's a little bit of that going on here, but of course the hands are very much pushed forwards. Use the images that work for you. They're tools to help us gain a certain sort of style of movement rather than being anything sort of significant in their own right. So feel free to use your own images, change images if you wish. You may find that you get used to doing it in a certain way, and then you try a different image, and it may well change the movement. I've had that happen. Let's do one more round of this. This time when you go forwards, turning your hands out. Again, that winding action, almost the reverse of what we've done before. One more time. I'm going to change. Bring your hands in. This time pushing up. Keeping the rhythm of the movement, which is pretty constant all the way through. Quality of the movement. Think of a ball here inside your body, expanding. So as your arms are pushed up, as your back lengthens, there's also a feeling of a push downwards through your hips and through your feet, keeping you very much in touch with the ground as you extend out. Then we're going to change to the wild goose next. One more time. And parting the clouds. The dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Still, just to remind you that counterbalancing movement, the one that pushes downwards, should be there just before you feel the extension upwards or outwards. It's there with all the movements. So we get into the habit, both mentally and physically, of sort of, in a sense, finding the ground before we move. And it's something that's very easy to lose, I think. So that an important element in the practice, this recognition of this counterbalancing movement down into the ground as the sort of initiator of any kind of extending outwards. And as we see when we're standing, the initiator of the weight transfer and the stepping and so on and so forth. One more time. With hands together, pushing in two directions. So we want to try and get to the point where that, as I described it, that sense of finding the ground is just something that we do without having to sort of consciously think about it. It becomes very much a habit in the way that we move, rather than the opposite, which is often the case for us, I think, where we're sort of constantly trying to push away from the ground. This time, just add in the turning, making sure that the hip on the opposite side to the way that you're turning doesn't sort of lift off the ground. So you keep your body upright, keep your pelvis level, and just turn as far as the space within your body allows you to. It's not a big movement. So here, of course, I'm facing the front. Think about the center line of my body. They're kind of halfway between my knees. Here too, I'm doing the same thing. When I turn, I'm kind of facing towards that knee, not right round here. The limit, because in a way you're sort of leaving your hip behind because the hip is sinking down. So there's going to be a bit of a stretch there. We'll do one more round of this exercise. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. And then grasping tiger's ears. Switch sides. And then changing, still remembering that feeling of moving through water. Feet back. And back into the wild goose. And this time, add in the turn in movement. Now, as we build this, just notice what's happening in your body. And we'll go through various kinds of stages, but if it's not comfortable for you to go further than you've already got, just stay with whatever stage that is. Be careful of your back and your legs, hips. First of all, just as you turn, moving the weight. So as I turn this way, I go in the direction of the front hand. I go into this leg a little bit. So this is wind blows the willows. And feel just a bit increasing pressure in that foot. And I want that to sort of support my head. Next, we bring the other foot into play. And all we're going to do initially is push down through the ball of the foot and raise the heel. So that's going to be this foot. The heel comes up, the hands come up, and then down as the hands go down. And then on the opposite side, you may feel a little bit of a push, kind of adds to the energy, moving your arms. The next movement is very simple, but equally can be quite sort of strong. It's just going to flex the foot. So you raise the heel and then flex the foot so your toes actually come off the ground. You're not lifting the leg any higher at this point. And you can feel that, that's quite strong on your leg and your hip. So be careful. If it suits you, you can begin to raise the foot a little bit higher. Just make sure that that doesn't create a strain and doesn't throw your posture out. So it's here, not here. You're not kind of pulling the foot up. And again, just as ever, it's not a competition. This is Dragonfly Skims the Water now. And then final stage, again, even stronger. So be careful. You might only want to do a few of these. You lift and you rotate from the hip. So it's the side of your foot coming up. One more on each side. And then once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And your arm. And on the other side. The upper part of your chest. belly. Legs. Good. Stand if you wish to. So the basic posture, as always, that we're looking for involves the hips hanging back. And if I just, before I get rid of the chair, just to give you an idea, this chair's not quite the right height to do this with, by the way, but it'll do to just. So it's almost like if I was sitting on a fence, my sort of hips and lower back and buttocks would hang over. You can just about see there, and so the same idea is what we're looking for here. If somebody were to take the chair away, to avoid falling backwards, I would just let my pelvis tuck under, but my hips would stay in the same place. So this is how we normally stand. We don't want to do this because we go forwards and our knees get strained. So we sometimes refer to it as sitting. So from here, and then just sinking down and pushing up. So through your feet, pushing into the ground as the shoulders and your arms and hands go up. And your hips, of course, going up. Like a plant putting down roots to grow upwards. And then change into the wild goose. And then out in the clouds. One more time. Good. And shake. When we did the step in the chair, I said, no, don't step too far. Keep this knee soft. and feel that the contact with the ground is quite good. What that adds up to overall is a shorter step than we might normally take. There's nothing wrong with taking long steps, by the way, you know, when we walk down the road and so on and so forth, as long as we're not putting us at risk, it's not slippery or something like that. But we take the shorter steps in Tai Chi for very specific reasons. So that what we're looking to be able to do is to put the foot down. And then I've talked about this before, the idea of just gently pushing the foot into the floor. Now, if I've taken a long step, that's quite difficult to do. As I say, there are good reasons for taking longer steps. But it's really the idea of pushing the foot down is related to this idea of being in touch with the ground before you commit your weight to it. I sometimes say to people when we're doing the stepping, it's like you're walking on thin ice. You want to actually test the ground. So it just raises your sensitivity to it, your awareness of the ground beneath your feet. It's not how you would normally walk, but you know, the sensitivity, the awareness will sort of flow into your everyday walking. So when we take this stance, have one foot forward, my weight's in my back foot, I push down here, but at the same time I gently push down through the front foot, and it can almost feel as though I'm being pulled in to the ground. The same thing here, go back, just pushing down obviously to move myself, but just almost checking the ground beneath my foot before I commit my weight to it. And we'll slow the movement down a bit. You may even find you're getting less movement, but that's fine. It feels very awkward, particularly to begin with. It took me quite a while to really feel that this was happening smoothly and to get a sense that I was experiencing it in other circumstances as well. So yeah, this is a long-term practice, I think, this one, but most of Tai Chi is, isn't it? So, to raise your toes and your heel, always remembering to use the wall or the chair or the table for support. When it's comfortable, step in, plant the foot down, push into the ground, let the weight follow. So I suppose there's a slight sort of pause here, isn't there? And then we move. On the other side. So you're not going to be able to get that little push down every time, but when you think about it, you know, every now and then just remind yourself of that when you're doing this exercise. It feels quite nice if you can do this on grass or even on a soft carpet, because of course that little push will push into the soft surface. You'll feel that more sort of definitely on a surface like that. So if you've got a nice lawn or something, you can practice it on. Raising your toes and your heel. It's also not uncommon to find that it's kind of easier with one foot than another. And if it's comfortable, stepping in. And then again, if you wish, take a few steps. Doesn't matter which direction, whichever's wherever you've got the space. Just take 3 or 4 steps. And back the other way. So just trying to, one way or another, remain very aware of the ground beneath your feet. Now see if you can have that awareness of the ground kind of in the back of your mind as you now go into fisherman cast a net. So you obviously quite a lot of your attention now taken up with what's happening in your arms, upper body. So this too is good training, because we don't want to get to a point where we're walking down the road and all we can think about is the ground beneath our feet. There's other things that we want to be doing while we're walking around. So we want it to be one of these sort of background things, and sort of like the background awareness. And then turning, so going into wind blows the willows. Again, not turning too far. And what you may notice, and this may relate to your awareness of the ground as well, is that if you turn too far, you kind of get a bit wobbly, maybe lose that connection to the ground. Now try that on the other side. Fisherman cast a net. And then turning. Okay, and lovely. Find a chair again. So sitting upright, aware of the pressure in hips and buttocks, and between the sole of your foot and the floor. Hands to your sides. Embrace tiger, return to mountain. One more round. And rest. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
As always, thanks very much for attending. And take care of yourselves and enjoy the rest of the day. We've still got some sunshine here. So, yeah, so take care then, all of you.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.